So continuing with my story, sorry the video got cut off again. This time actually, I think they mind controlled me to do it. They really do not want me telling this story. What I was explaining was that they were traumatizing me to the max, okay? And that they were using that to keep me in this kind of alter ego where I was just smiling and joking the whole time. And I couldn't express how horrifying this all was, okay? I found it very hard. However, when people directly asked me, I could answer. For example, 2 doctors asked me, how is this affecting you? And I told them, it's traumatizing me. So that was right at the beginning. That would have been around 2016, I believe. If it wasn't 2016, it would have been early 2017. But it was early on. It was right when it had all started. So these are 2 doctors. So nobody can then pretend, oh, we thought she was enjoying it. No, no, no. And also, you don't take all your savings, sell all your belongings, and take all your pension to escape from a country where everything is just fine, do you? No, obviously not. I was escaping because I was being persecuted and tortured, and it was unbearable. And actually my life was being put in danger over and over and over again. But because everyone was behaving as if it was all just a joke, you know, it was all being covered up. And then exactly the same thing happened in America. Exactly the same thing. Okay. So this needs to be investigated. And as I say, I am completely innocent. I have not done anything wrong. So if they can do this to me, they can do it to anybody. So going back to the story, yeah, that night there was a strange phone call, and I do wonder if they had done that thing. You know, because pilots have obviously they have a lot of money, so they have these more sophisticated phones, and that did exist there then at that time. That, you know, the more higher end phones, the ones where you can just kind of, I've never used it myself, but I've seen that they exist, that you can kind of wave the phone near somebody else's phone and pick up the number. So I think they did something like that. But after that, as I said, things kind of got worse. And I know that this pilot was instrumental in that, because I saw him in the canteen at Gatwick, the staff canteen. I remember I was having some coffee, and he was at the counter with some other people. I don't know if they were pilots. Some of them I think were pilots. And he was making them laugh, and then he turned around to look at me, and they all looked. You know, this is classic bullying, but I think it was more than that, you know, because that was the start of this whole rumor thing. Then the next thing I remember was another one of my very early flights. One of the crew talking to me about stealing. And now that I think about that, I realize, oh, they had already spread the rumor that I was a thief before they even did any setups or mind control, because I've told the story before how they mind controlled me to forget to take the charity bag to put the charity bag in the chute where it should go, you know. Now I'm thinking, oh, this was a setup right from the start, like right from the very start. So they were already telling people, they were already spreading rumors about me. And then they did setups to make it. Let's talk about some of the setups. See, these kinds of things are only, you can only really realize them in hindsight. It's only by looking back that you realize, oh, that's what they were doing, you know? For example, there's a memory that just keeps coming back to me, so I'm just going to tell it. Well, it's very many memories, but this one in particular. So what they were doing, the gang stalkers, they were doing setups so that things were going missing, in inverted commas, on many of my flights. And the significance of this is that they had already told me that a security guard, actually, it was one of the security people, had told me that what they do, you see, it was a setup. It was absolutely a setup. It's incredible. So he told me that the way they find out who the guilty people are is that they run the data through a computer, and they don't even have to run it through because it's already there, you know, all the names of the crew on each flight, which flights things went missing, for example, or whatever incident, you know, they're worried about. And then there's a common denominator. And guess what? These gang stalkers were doing, they were making things go missing on my flights. So it looked like I was the common denominator. This is how they make an innocent person look guilty. And this one incident, well, okay, I'm going to tell another incident first. One incident was that the guy I was working with, who was a really nice guy, I remember at one point he came up to me with a very pale face and he said, have you seen my bag? And I said, no. I said, what does it look like? And then behind me, you see, there was a bag that had fallen on the floor it looked like it had been put behind some seats, but it had been kind of, as the passengers were getting off the flight, it had been moved and it was kind of open. And I had even stepped over it because I thought that was somebody who was halfway through, you know, packing up to get off the flight. You see, I didn't want to disturb somebody else's stuff. But then he came along and he looked all pale and worried. And then he looked behind me and he said, well, that's my bag. And then looked at me accusingly. Do you see how they set these things up? And I had I had just stepped over that because I thought it was one of the passengers who was, you know, in the middle of putting their laptop back or whatever it was. And it turns out that what was missing was the laptop from the bag. Now, I don't even know what happened about that. If they found it again, I do not know. No, you know, I'm not given any information. But do you see, that's a very serious incident. And here's the thing, you know, if they really thought that I was the one, why didn't they stop me at security and check my bags? That would have been a very easy thing to do. And they would have found out that I was innocent because I didn't have a laptop. I mean, you see how it's like deliberate mistakes kind of thing, really, because they're not following procedure at all, yet they're making people think I'm a guilty person with absolutely no proof. You know, and they're the ones doing the setups and making it look like, you know, I've done something that I haven't done. So the incident that keeps coming back to me that that I wanted to say is, now, I don't know why I keep remembering that this was a short haul flight, but it would have been the time when I was doing long haul. So I'm still a bit confused about that. I've got a vague recollection that some of us were asked to do some short haul flights to fill in because they were short staffed or something like that. But I really believe that I was very heavily under mind control at that time, and that's why I can't remember the details. It's because the details are being wiped from my memory. But I was flying with a girl, well, you know, the crew, and one of the girls, now I'm trying to remember, she was around my height, but thinner than me because I'm quite chubby, and she was younger than me, and she had kind of sandy color hair, I think, and I believe it was, why am I remembering? Okay, so as I'm telling the story here, this is what's happening. As I'm telling it and trying to remember it, the image is changing in my mind. So they're doing this. They're doing this with mind control. Unbelievable. Okay. But if I remember rightly, well, there's two incidents, okay? There's two incidents, both with this girl. And I'm going to tell the later one because that's the one. Gosh, I'm messing this up because they're mind controlling me. I'm very, very sorry. But now I'm not going to delete this and make it better because I want you to understand what it's like to deal with mind control. So I can remember being on a flight with this girl and her telling me that she had had something stolen. I don't know if she told me it was money or not. But that's what's coming into my mind, that it was money. And I said, oh my goodness, you know, I said, you know who it was? And she looked at me kind of meaningfully and said, oh yes, I know who it was. And I can't remember the exact conversation, but I was like, you know, well, then you can get it back, can't you? Kind of thing. And I can't remember the exact conversation, but she just looked very kind of angry with me and then slouched off, you know. I mean, now, the reason I wanted to tell that first was that was what gave me the clue, the prompting that then made me remember the previous incident. And the previous incident, you see, they've been wiping my memory, but these memories do come, well, I hope they all come back eventually, but I don't know, but I hope so. And what I remembered is that that we were on this stop, and it was somewhere in Europe. It was somewhere in Europe. I don't know why I'm remembering that. Maybe it wasn't somewhere in Europe, but euros could be used or something. I guess in an airport you can use any currency, can't you? Maybe that was it. I don't know exactly the details here, but it was some situation where I needed money and I didn't have any. Okay, and that's weird too, because I would have had my card. I can't imagine that I would have had zero in my bank. So I'm not, you know, this memory is confused, okay, and I'm sorry about that. I'm doing my best. But what I remember, I had known that I didn't have any money, any actual cash. I had known that. However, when I went into my bag to get something else, I found a note in there, and I think it was 10 euros. I think that's what it was. And you see, this is such a vague memory, but it keeps coming back to me, so I know it's significant. And I remember another crew member say, there I was with it, holding it in my hand. And the crew member saying, but I thought you said you didn't have any money. And I said, yeah, I didn't, but look, I found some, And now I'm tying together that incident with the incident where the girl was telling me that she had something stolen. I think it was money, she said. I mean, it's looking very like one of the gang stalkers maybe took that from her bag and put it into mine. That's what it's looking like. Because I swear, that's not something I would ever do. I would never, ever take... Gosh, I'd rather starve to death than take money from my colleagues. That's just... Oh, my goodness. Okay? They are literally trying to make me appear to be the absolute opposite to what I am. Honestly, it's incredible. And they're succeeding. I mean, it's just, why do people believe this garbage? So that, I mean, this is really getting to me because I'm remembering more and more incidents like this. Oh, there was another one. They deliberately tore open one of these, what do you call them? The little envelopes that people put their coins in for the charity. And on a flight, one of the ones towards the end, actually, where they were mobbing me, I remember it was an Indian girl, but I'd never flown with her before. I'm not from India, an English girl, but that was Indian. And I remember her pointing to this and pointing at me and saying, kind of accusingly, really accusingly. And I hadn't done that. Like, it's as if they were all trying to catch me out in something, but I hadn't done anything, It's exactly that same feeling as all these people trying to make me admit that I'm German when I'm not German, It's exactly that same thing. They're doing it over and over and over again, just making up complete lies and then making people try and make me admit to things that are lies. I mean, if I even knew what they were trying to make me admit to, it would help, It took me so long to figure out this German thing. I didn't know why these complete strangers were having these ridiculous conversations with me about Germany. Or why on Facebook they got all these German people to just message me in German. And because of politeness, what I was doing was I was copying the thing, putting it into Google Translate, and then replying to them, sorry, I don't speak German, And now I'm realizing that my politeness made me look even more guilty. Do you see? This is all psychological torture, all right? It really is. To be constantly under attack when you haven't done anything wrong. It's horrible. It's torture, okay? And what they do, this is torture on top of torture, on top of torture, on top of torture. Because this is, many people around me, all with this mistaken idea about me. And the thing is, because I'm an empath, I can feel their anger. I can feel their hatred. I can feel it. And I don't understand why. That in itself is torture, and they know it. They do tailor their tortures to the person. And I've said this before, and I've posted it before. What they are doing is the torture from 1984. And what that was, in case you haven't read the book, Room 101 is where they put people you know, who disagreed with the government, who was called Big Brother at that time. And what they did was they forced them to experience all their worst fears. And that is exactly what they are doing, to me at least. I don't know if they're doing that to all TIs, but they're most certainly doing that to me. They've taken away my children. I mean, that alone should have that should have driven me to suicide, because, you know, listen, I'm a real mama bear with my kids, you know, and what they've done is they've basically broken the bond between mother and child. I mean, it's unforgivable what they've done. Really, it's unforgivable. It's definitely warrants the death penalty, that one. And by the way, they justified that based on lies that my ex-husband told them. Now, my ex-husband is very good at playing the victim. You know, he can turn on the tears anytime he likes. He's a very good actor. And I believe that he must have told them something along the lines of, oh, you know, that evil narcissist woman, she stole my children, you know. Now, here's the truth. He was a womanizer, and he had been sleeping his way around all the girls in the village while I was pregnant. Okay, and when I had given birth to our second child, who was, you know, a baby, and that's when my son was 9 months old, that's when he actually left. He left. I didn't throw him out. I didn't stop him seeing his children. I didn't do any of that. Okay, he left of his own accord. Okay, and then after leaving me and the children, he then left the country. He went to another country. He went home to Argentina is what he did. And he did it in a very horrible way, because he told the children, who were then, I don't know, 3 and 5 or something, years old at that time, he told them that he was going on a 2-week holiday. And really, he was emigrating. And one of his friends told me. That's how I know. So he made up all this story, you know, that I'm this terrible woman who stole his children, and it's all completely lies. Okay? And there's a lot more I could say. Really, there's a lot more I could say, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave that there. You know, what I can tell you is that he is not the victim at all in any way. In fact, it's the other way around. And I'm just going to leave that there. This video is already way too long, so I'm going to stop it.